end, but we have so much to cover today that I'm going to jump right in. I hope that you brought your pens and paper. Hey, Ron, yay, yay, I love seeing faces. I hope you brought, yeah, pens, paper, all the things. This is probably the one of the few times I'm going to say it's acceptable to um, kind of be looking at other tabs while we're talking, because we're actually going to do more of a workshop style. I want to go ahead and start by saying this is not intended to be overwhelming. It's intended to make sure everybody has a realistic kind of viewpoint on what they want to get accomplished next year. I think a lot of times, two big things. Well, a lot of times we'll start to set goals and not back into the numbers based on what's realistic. So I'm probably going to frighten you by some numbers that I'm going to share with you today about what's really required in this industry to close deals, depending on who your target customer is. And then secondly, I really just want this to be an opportunity for you to take the workbook that I'm going to give you, take the calculator tool that I'm going to give you, and then go with your teams and sit down and have kind of a second part session. Now, I've already decided, because of people who aren't able to be here today because end of year, and I know a lot of things are crazy, I'm going to repeat this workshop in January. So if you know anybody on your team that you want to attend, just know this will be repeated in January. Same exact one. We're just going to probably call it a workshop instead of a webinar, just to change up the name a little bit. Thumbs up if you're ready to get started. Thumbs up. Let's go. All right. So I'm going to share on my screen what we're going to talk through today. Both of the things that we're going to talk through are going to be, related to planning out the year. You're going to get a calculator. You're going to get a document. I'm going to ask you to copy and then use as your own. But here's what we're going to do today. Set some clear goals and targets for your growth for this year, for 2026. We're going to identify really clear KPIs on what we need to do and how to track those back into our goals and track those things. We're going to map out our plan and budget for the year. We're going to better understand exactly who we're selling to and that unique value proposition or differentiator that we have that's unlike what anybody else does. And then we're going to complete your marketing plan for 2026. At the very minimum, you'll have the first 90 days worked out. You might want to go work with your team to get the rest of it. But all right, let's go. I always ask, please just be here now. You showed up today. If you decided to dedicate this hour, then I'm just going to ask you to be here, engage, lean in, work live with me. Think of this as a working session, not, a webinar where you're sitting and listening to me only. I want you to really take what I'm giving you and put it to practice. So try to shut out distractions, turn the phone off. And just to recap on why this matters, we're really already in 2026. I mean, in the next week or two, things are going to shut down, and we're going to forget about all the things that we need to do for a couple of days, and then we're going to come right back in. And those who win in this industry are going to be those who hit the ground running in January and have a plan and don't wait till March to get the plan, right? So just perspective on your buyer. Buying patterns in this industry have changed a whole lot, and I'm sure you've seen that. People are more distracted than ever. Competition is louder, and the companies that are the most clear and consistent, saying what what makes them different over and over and over, are the ones that are really pulling ahead. Your buyers are already overwhelmed. You need to focus on how to communicate how you solve their problems, and again, do that over and over and over. So you're going to need alignment with your leadership on what your plans are, your operations, your sales process, your marketing. So we're going to look at all those things. This is not just about, planning your year only for digital marketing. It's planning your year about overall and what priorities you need to put in place. So what you're going to take away is this workbook. So Anna's going to drop this workbook in the chat right now. You can go ahead and grab it. I know a lot of you are Microsoft people. You can grab the link and then make a copy, please. I don't think you're able to, but please do not work directly in this workbook. Go ahead, grab the workbook using the link that you see in the chat, and go ahead and make a copy of it. Title it whatever you need to title it so that you'll know this is your 2026 plan. And then go ahead and file it in whatever folder you have for next year planning. Put it on your desktop if you have to, so that you'll know to earmark it for later. And you know, a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of people have big plans about what their revenue goals are, but they do not have a plan of what they've got to hit month over month to back into that. So that's what we're going to walk away with today. You'll have this workbook, and then you'll have a calculator tool that you can use to show your team, okay, this is what Laura says we really have to accomplish. And you might not like what you see today, just going ahead and preparing you for that. So any questions before we get started? Y'all ready? Thumbs up if you're ready. All right. And it's also going to drop this link in the chat. This is the link you're probably not going to like, but I'm going to stop my share and go into another. Y'all going to have to forgive me on my screen switching today because there's a lot of different screens to show y'all, but you should have a workbook. So right here, you'll just need to go in and make a copy and title it whatever you want to title it. And then this is your business calculator. Okay. You can do this on your own while we're talking through it. But the one thing that I just added this section today, because I think that just looking at this, you're like, wait a minute, how does she get these numbers from, my revenue goals? So if you see here, can everybody see my screen? Yep. Okay. Put a 1 in the chat if you cannot see it, so Anna can help you. But if you can go to this calculator.thebusinessgrowers.com. Okay. So if you know what your current annual revenue is, you can plug that in, what you're targeting for the end of 2026, what's your target annual revenue number, what's your average monthly recurring revenue per customer, and that average contract term in months for your customer. And then if you don't know this, you should, but in this industry, typically 1 to 3% is the churn rate. If you're really, really healthy, it could be under. Got lots of clients that are under 0.5%, so it might be way less. But I've already calculated these numbers using both the rule of 78 that shows, revenue as it continues throughout the year, and then also churn. So this is a tool you can use to figure out exactly what you need to hit your number from a customer standpoint. Now you might be like, Laura, why this number looks a little bit off? Remember, we're calculating what we know you're going to lose. We're calculating this based on all the factors that you need in place and your annual churn rate. Okay, this is the part y'all are not going to like. However, it is very important, and I try to educate on this a lot. But if you know your close rate, and you're like, Laura, half the people that I talk to, I close. Okay, that's great. But you cannot evaluate a close rate on a person that you breezed by, maybe you rub shoulders with for 20 seconds at a trade show, and say my close rate on this person that I breezed by at a trade show to close is 50%. That's just not true. There's a marketing qualified lead, and this is going to be in the workbook too. A marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead. We are considering your close rate a sales qualified lead to close, which means we know they're interested. We've had a conversation, and we're actually preparing a proposal. So I want you to understand that when you say my close ratio is 35% or 30%, I want you to really dig into, okay, is this from knowing somebody's qualified to close, not stone cold to close? Because if you put in, your real numbers, and you are welcome to evaluate what you think these numbers are. If you don't know them, figure it out. But if you don't know them today, leave it where it is, because this is an industry standard. Everybody following? Not confusing anybody yet? So leave that advanced funnel setting, leave that alone. So type in your close ratio, and then you'll be able to see, and if you're in sales, you're probably like, thank you, Laura, I can go show this to my boss and make sure that they understand that it's not, close ratio isn't stone cold to close. This is really what a funnel looks like on the sales side. Just, these are all, like I said, industry benchmarks. Okay. So this is your growth blueprint. How many customers you're going to need, how many sales qualified leads you're going to need, how many marketing qualified leads you're going to need, which are not necessarily, people that are ready to buy. And you decide, what those things are. But in your workbook, there's an example of what's marketing qualified versus sales qualified. And then impact to your business, the total lifetime value, just so that you can kind of see that. So this is all pre-calculated. I've been working on it up until the minute to make sure that I'm giving y'all as much value here as possible. But go ahead and start plugging those in. so that you know where you're working from. And then I'm going to go to this tab real quick. This kind of shows you that same breakdown. If this is helpful, feel free to screenshot if you want to, or you've got the calculator, so you may not need a screenshot. But this kind of shows you what's actually going to get done from a MQL marketing qualified lead to close deal. I just want everybody to be realistic as we get started. Okay, so now you can go into your workbook. Has everybody copied over the workbook? Thumbs up. Yep. Okay. So, and for some of you on the call, we're doing your marketing, so I want to make sure I'm clear on this. This is not just marketing, and it's also not only with what's within. So we're covering the full gamut of everything. And some of those things your marketing partner is doing, and some of those things your marketing partner is not doing. It says my connection is unstable. So if y'all cannot hear or see me, let me know and I can get a hardwire connection. You see here, I have the definition of marketing qualified to sales qualified, just so that y'all know. With your teams internally, what you just put in the calculator, you also can do here in section 1. So you see this right here. Thank you. I'm going to bring a hardwire in here just in case. So this section 1 is basically a repeat of the calculator. You can also put those hard numbers in here. So if you want to take just a few minutes, I don't want to speed through this, but take just a few minutes and go ahead and jot the numbers down in section 1, your current snapshot where you are today. And I said, this is workshop style. So y'all take a few minutes, go ahead and do that so that you have that in the workbook. Y'all feel free to ask questions. This is very open and casual. I'm going to do about 1 minute here, 1 or 2, probably
Laura,
2
we
minutes.
have one question in the chat about an explanation on lifetime, the meaning of that.
Total lifetime value. It just means how long for the life of the customer. If there was a little section that says how long are your contracts. So that's just assuming the contract. That's a good question actually, because if the lifetime is really, hey, they stay with me forever, then it's probably going to be more than that. But we're only assuming lifetime value is life of the contract. Just for the purposes of this. That's a great question. I'll have to go in and put that in the calculator so people know. And y'all give me a ready in the chat when you feel good about section 1, and we'll move to section 2. I want to make sure y'all heard me on the lifetime.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
There was a clarifier of what about lifetime if it's month to month?
Then you just tell me how long they in the contract length, just put how long they typically stay. But strong encouragement as a plan for 2026 to consider contracts to make your own business more valuable. That's a good question. But you can estimate how long that you can usually keep a customer. Just give me a thumbs up or ready in the chat when you're done with section 1. John's ready. Brian's ready. Get one more thumbs up before we move on. Okay. All right. And you remember we have a recording coming straight to you when we're done. So, or, when Anna gets time to send out the recording. So you'll get this recording and you can go do it, after the fact too, if you don't get finished with it. Okay, now we're going to move on to your market position, market focus. This is tough for a lot of people. People will often say, oh, well, either I don't really have a differentiator, or if you use this differentiator, then you need another one. A lot of people like to use, well, our relationships with our customers are great. That is a differentiator that keeps and retains clients. That is not a differentiator that sells clients or new customers. Your customer relationships, I'm telling you right now, everyone says that. That's an emotional kind of differentiator and not something that you can use as a core differentiator. I've had every single, you know, person that I've talked to is like, oh, well, we have great relationships. That will keep them, that won't sell them. So I want you to really think about your market position and your differentiation. Because I bet today, if you go look at 10 to 12 of or 5 or 3 of your competitors, and compared websites or compared, what they're saying about what they do, a lot of us are doing kind of the same thing in the industry, right? Or something really similar. So if I am a, you know, prospect of yours and I'm looking at the same thing that you're looking at, 3, 5, 10, and keep in mind, I say this stat all the time, but they're doing about 82, roughly statistically, 82% of their research is going to be done on the computer, online, on the internet. So they're looking at those 3 websites the same way that you are. When you're comparing them, you have to sound different. So, and a lot of folks don't want to, pick a specific vertical because they might, feel limited, or they don't want to say they specialize in something and lose opportunities. And I promise you, you will still get opportunities outside of those things, but picking one industry will help that MQL to close percentage dramatically, because you're going to be getting people that are more closer ready to buy because they've done their research and they see that you're different and specialized for them. So take section 2, start typing in some of this. What verticals or industries are you serving? What outcomes do you deliver better than any competitor? Any unique method or process? Really good differentiators to name what you do, maybe trademark it, put a name around it, whether it's um, you know, the, I can't think of a good name, I'm kind of drawing a blank, but creating something that makes you a little different and making it unique by giving it a name. The no down, never down roadmap or something, never always connected uh, roadmap or something like that. That's not a good, not a good wording, but I would do a better job if we were doing this one-on-one. But anyway, go ahead and think about, do I have a unique process or method, or could I potentially? And then what makes your service or what you do irreplaceable to your customers? What would make them, and a lot of your customers who are really loyal and faithful, never consider going anywhere else? And then, like I said, if you don't have a quote unquote differentiator, go ahead and pick at least one of these. But you can see here, it's not, a lot of times when we think differentiator, we only go to verticals, but you can see here all the different things that actually could differentiate you. Whether it's your tech stack, your outcome is really, really dialed in. And so you know exactly what you can offer. And this one's a good one for you guys, Mark. What exactly can you save them or cut out of their day to day? Also, cultural or value differentiation, veteran owned, or something like that. Those are things that when I'm looking at 3 or 4 websites side by side that can stick out. So you see here all the different options here, and check all of them that apply. And then we're going to move into your ideal customer. I use coin the term ICP often, ideal customer profile. You hear me say that a lot. But oftentimes we plan our whole year and we don't stop to consider the year before and think about, hey, who made us the most money? Which customers were the least troublesome, most profitable? Some of those types of things. Who's bringing us the most value with the least effort? Who did that in 2025? And would that be somebody that we would want to repeat and sell more to in 2026? And then in 2.2, just type in those answers and who is typically making that decision. And then tell me everything about, or, write down everything about that decision maker. Take a few minutes to do that. We're 20 minutes in section 2 out of 9. So we're going to keep rolling here in just a second, but give you just a minute to really think about differentiation, ideal customer. We'll do like 1 minute and then we'll move on to the services. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about section 2? If you don't get through it, you can do it later. Now we're going to move into your services and audit of your operations. Go ahead and list out what you're offering. If it's a product, service, package, program, whatever it is you call it. List exactly what you're offering. You may need a little extra room. That's why you have your own to edit if you do. And then go ahead and start filling out 3.2. Where are clients asking for more? Again, assess what's not profitable. What are we not charging enough for? What services need a better process? Maybe we're not as efficient in one service offering over the other. And some of you might just have one thing you offer. So I don't want to assume you've got multiple, but just start thinking here about what's the demand, what's not working. I've been asking my team and having conversations in my team, we're doing some things in marketing because they're part of a marketing mix, but are they truly bringing results? Measurable? Maybe not. So really think about what those services are that you need to offer. And then another thing, what should be premium? What are we including in our basic program that maybe should be premium, or that other people are using or considering a premium service? Or is there a way to split out something and make it a premium? So go ahead at the bottom of 3 and just jot down a couple of internal things you need to focus on from an operational and product standpoint. Yeah, and always remember, if you're adding a service, don't just add it because it's cool. Not to pick on any of those engineers in the room, but I used to work for a company putting a cellular module in an electric meter, and every time I heard an engineer say, what would be really cool is if ... I would turn and run, because that meant there was a new gadget we were gonna start offering. All right, jot down what those 3 to 5 things are that you need to focus on. And then this you might want, this is the part where we're really going to talk about your growth engine in 3 parts. I like a show of hands. Put a 1 in the chat if you feel like marketing and lead generation require the same skill set. And some of you might be like, what's the difference? Do you feel like it's a lead generation skill set and a website skill set? There's no ones in the chat, so I'm going to assume, I didn't ask the question and really pointed way. But a lot of times we say, oh, marketing, and we expect not the same. Thank you. You're right. We might hire one person internally and fire them in 8 months when they haven't gotten us leads. And we're not evaluating their time spent. We're not looking to see. But when a marketing person is serving both an internal team with documents, collateral, website, social media content, all those things, that's not a lead generation activity. A lot of times it's foundational marketing. So I like to look at a growth system for your business that takes time to build in kind of three buckets. So foundationally, website, basic SEO, tracking, service pages, some of these types of things. Then you'll see authority, and then you'll see demand. Those are kind of three big buckets that you need to think about in that order in terms of how healthy you are from a marketing standpoint. So glance at this foundation section and just put an X on that right side if you know yes, and if you don't know, question mark, and if it's no, leave it blank. This is how you're really going to build your priorities or work with your account manager on our side to incorporate some of this into your scope if you're a client of ours. But most of all, I want to do this for awareness for you guys to know. Go ahead and look. If you don't know, and some of you are not the marketing people, so you might not know, but just put an X if I'm like, yeah, if you're like, yeah, I think I've got that, or I think we're doing that. Yeah. And then tally the score of the X's and put them right there. Am I moving too fast, or are you guys okay? Good. Okay. And I call this foundation because that's the very basic thing that you should be doing. You really, as a business, should not be tackling anything in the demand category until you have everything checked in the foundation category. Does that make sense? And then when you move into authority, this is the part that, in my experience, no one really wants to spend time on, but I would like to see if anybody can complete this sentence. People buy from people they what? Blank. Anybody know? Trust. Yep, Brian's got it. So, in order to trust someone else, they have to see that you are trustworthy. And drop in the chat your typical buying timeline of your customer from very beginning to close. How long does it usually take you to close a deal? I'd love to know. We usually see 6 to 18 months range, sometimes 3 years, depending on, if they're in a 3 to 6 months. Anybody else? Drop in the chat how long it takes you to close a deal. Yeah, 36 months. Okay. So we see a variety in this industry, and a lot of it depends on current contracts and some things like that. 6 months from John. Okay. So if it takes a while for them to make a purchase decision, or even if it doesn't, to be honest, there are some authority related items that you really need to be doing. And this doesn't just mean your marketing team. This means you as a leader in your business personally. This is the no fun part because yes, I'm telling you to be posting on social media, which Brian, I've been watching you now. You're really getting active on your LinkedIn. I like it. But also from an authority standpoint, if I trust you, that means I don't feel like you are trying to sell me all the time, right? And so that's what's important about the authority portion of your marketing mix is that if you are truly, and you've heard me say this ad nauseum, if you ever attended one of these, but if you're truly waking up every day to serve your customer better instead of sell them something, the sales will come. And so on the authority side, go ahead and start checking the boxes here. But we should be, both the brand and your leadership team showing up on LinkedIn with something helpful every week, producing long form content like this webinar. This webinar is going to be recorded and it's going to be put on our YouTube. for people to use as a resource. Google reviews, great trust building, consistent Google reviews, local involvement, visibility in local communities if you're selling to a local market, if not visibility in your industry for sure, events, things like that. And then you can kind of see we can be found across multiple places. And then a lot of folks aren't doing this, but at a baseline from an authority standpoint, a simple retargeting ad is kind of the lowest ad budget option that you can do. In terms of you're doing like a paid ad campaign, LinkedIn, something like that. But at minimum, if you're going to pay for ads, retargeting people who have been to your website is a good baseline to start. But a lot of us aren't here yet. So go ahead and just type X in the things that you are doing and score yourself here. And this is a crawl, walk, run. Remember, we're not gonna, when you get to authority and demand, it's okay if not everything is checked. It's okay if nothing's checked. That's okay. I just want you to see where you sit today and what's required. And then when you move into demand, this is when you really are kind of maturing in your marketing and you're doing outbound outreach with a salesperson, sales team. You are reactivating your database. Frequently, your old contacts are hearing from you. They're not going cold and dead forever. You have a process for that. You're doing, promotions, marketing pushes on a regular basis. I love webinars, obviously, and workshops, paid ads. This webinar alone has been a good source for authority, visibility, and lead generation for me. Podcasting, things like that. So go ahead and check here if you're doing any of these things. And then if you take your total number, this just tells you where you are today. And if you notice, we won't break into this today, but if you notice on your calculator, there's another tab called Budget Planner. The where you are today section in this workbook aligns with the marketing maturity here on the budget tab. So if you're just getting started, that means you had 10 or less X's on the worksheet. But this part of this calculator actually takes where you said you wanted to be from a revenue standpoint and then allows you to determine how aggressive you want to be with marketing this year. And then we'll help you design your marketing budget. One of the things that's really important that is that you consider how much of the budget goes to digital marketing, because we all know that personal outreach and contact and human touch when it comes to sales is still really important. What's also important? Your current customer base. Low-hanging fruit right there. If you've got more things to sell, if you're selling more than one product. So if you notice when you move your marketing investment around and choose your marketing maturity, this will actually shift. These percentages will shift based on where you want to go. But if you're telling me you want to grow by 10 million this year, and then you say, but I want to make a really low marketing investment, that's not consistent. So just make sure that your marketing investment, i.e. percentage of the revenue you want to spend, is consistent with what you said you wanted to do. You can't, you can see the revenue target here. So, and this will kind of tell you where you should be spending your money. So take that to your boss if you need to. And then next we're going to move into, can y'all see my workbook again? Yep. All right, go into the expansion portion of the workbook, section 5. And go ahead and just check or type yes or whatever is most appropriate for you. But go ahead and check, and maybe if you want to mention, what are you doing today for expansion? And not everyone is doing QBRs as quarterly business reviews. May not be appropriate for everyone's business, but if you are a high ticket, IT provider or offering any sort of consulting type component to your service, then quarterly business reviews is 100% should be part of your, process from a sales and retention standpoint. I have a whole webinar that I've done or podcast on quarterly business reviews. Really important part of what you should be doing for expansion. Also, expansion marketing means having a marketing plan for your current customer base, meaning what's our percentage that we're going to try to upsell with this new product, kind of setting goals around product expansion, making sure you know your numbers, understanding how many current customers have certain products and which ones don't. CRMs are really important for that. Do we have a good referral system? Do we have some sort of scorecard for our account managers? Do we have a way to regularly understand how our clients feel, whether it's in your ticketing, CSAT score, something like that? We use a red light, yellow light, green light here. Thank you, Anna. She just dropped our QBR webinar in the chat. Internally at the Business Growers, I can go to our internal project management tool and see who is in red, yellow, or green at any given time based on different factors. We can just drop the workbook in the chat. If you don't mind doing that. Somebody just asked, can I get a copy of the workbook? Yeah. Sure, Anita, thanks. So go ahead and see, okay, here are the things. This is the thing that's missed the most. We're so focused on new logo and new opportunities and new sales and new business that we're forgetting the opportunity with our current customer base. Do you have a plan for all of these things? Just check if yes. And then go ahead and put 3 to 5 things that you want to commit to improve on this year. We're at section 5. Now we're moving to section 6, field marketing. Go ahead and check what you're doing today. CPEs, continuing education type of events. Really, really, really good opportunity for those of you who are serving local markets. It can be done locally, or if you're serving a really specific vertical niche industry, is understanding what their pain points are and see how you can teach and train on a regular basis, right? And align your plans for the quarter or year based around that. Remember, I said, who can I serve today instead of who can I sell today? So what are these things are you not doing? If there's anything that you're not doing. If anybody doesn't know what a mastermind group is, that's just you can do it with your current customer base, or you can do it privately or externally, but having kind of like a weekly, or monthly brainstorming Q&A type thing with your customers. I have a few of my clients that were on it a couple days ago. We did a sales and marketing one. We do an operations one. Really good for retention, but these mastermind groups can also be great sales opportunities. Also, a lot of people do, Facebook or LinkedIn groups as a mastermind group where you share value every other day. And then sales enablement and follow-up. Just be really honest with yourself on these things and check mark what you're doing, what you're not doing. And give us about 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes here. And throw questions in the chat if y'all have any, please. Or just unmute and speak up. I'm sure most of you understand, but if you don't have section 7 figured out, then when you go to that calculator, it's gonna be really hard for you to understand what it really takes, This one's a tough one for a lot of folks in this industry. Automated quoting, because everything's kind of custom. Does anybody have their quoting totally automated? where it's easy, standardized, you can go drag and drop the quote and then, no. Yeah. I think quoting is what takes us hours a week sometimes. Okay, and just drop a little note there. What must improve in your sales process this year? From this list or maybe something else, but okay. I'm going to stop for just a second because we're about to move into a kind of a different, something that's going to require a little bit of a different mindset. Any questions about any of that, about the calculator? Am I moving too fast? Or are we okay? Okay. Most of your quoting is ICB, Brian, individual case basis. Yeah. It's hard to automate that. I know. We're working on that with our onboarding right now. It's a little bit too customized. Trying to figure out how to do that. Okay. All right. So we talked about, wait a minute. I think I'm sharing the wrong thing. Hang on 1 second. There we go. All right. Um, so we're going to kind of go back to the digital marketing section. That's obviously my strongest skill, but we have touched on these last few pages. If you notice, we looked at gaps in our services. We've looked at differentiation, how we can differentiate ourselves this year. We've looked at our current, where we stand currently in terms of marketing maturity. We've looked at upsells and expansion, making sure that we understand and see our opportunities there. We've talked about being out invisible in the field, which directly ties back to the digital marketing, because the more we can get, for me, the more my team can get access to what you guys are doing out in the field, the more we can promote on digital channels. So it's an extension of marketing, but it is a different, more relationship based versus digital. And then we talked about sales enablement and follow up. This can cripple you if you have the other things kind of under wraps. This is going to be what cripples you, is not really understanding what it takes to close the deal, get the deals, and hit those revenue numbers. Okay, and I promised some AI related items. So this is kind of where, and I have a webinar, and I don't know if you want to search for this, but I have the AI one about prompts, like which prompts to use. If you can find that and drop it in. But actually have created a whole separate webinar specifically about how to create content using specific prompts and a specific method called the CRIT method. As we should know by now, if you're using AI in any way, especially for writing copy, which my hope and wish is that everyone's using it more for strategic thinking versus just writing things. It's really good and helpful for strategizing, but with copy, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you put really poor prompts in, you're going to get really bad content out. So I have a whole training built around specifically what prompts to use to generate, high quality, not only to generate good content, but also to use it for critical thinking. But there's a book called, and I've mentioned it before, it's called Endless Customers by Marcus Sheridan. You've all probably heard me talk about it. That I believe is one of the best reads for you and or your marketing team as a business leader. And it is focused on how we show up online, specifically with our content. And the general summary of the book is, when it comes to building authority online through content, whether it's your content on your social media or video content or blog content, whatever it is, when you're building out those things, we do not need to build content based on what we think our customer thinks. I know that you're all the experts. I know you've talked to your customer 100 times, but you should be sitting down with your leadership team, if you are recording sales calls and have call transcripts, taking those or doing an exercise where you give your team a period of time, anybody that's client facing, and have them document what questions are your prospects asking you. What are you getting asked in the sales process? I do about an every 6-month dump of transcripts. I take all the transcripts from my AI reader and I put them in ChatGPT and I ask, or Gemini or whatever, and ask it to find the common 10, 15, 20 most common questions that my customers are asking. And here's why we do this, because with LLMs and AI search engines, people are searching differently with AI tools than they are on Google. That doesn't mean that the AI tools are not scrubbing Google, because they are. So the output on Google is also still very important, and your search results there too. But you should be building a content strategy for 2026 based on the questions that your prospects are asking if you want to rank in AI search engines. So to do that, you take sales calls, you record them, you brainstorm with your leadership team. One great tip is, if you're going to do it internally, if you can't get sales call transcripts or whatever, for whatever reason, have everybody kind of split up on your leadership team, anybody that's sales or client facing. Account managers are great for this, even support team members sometimes, because they know what they're getting asked the first couple of months of a new client relationship. Go ahead and have everybody individually write 20 things that they know they get asked. And then put your questions together and see what overlaps. It's a great exercise, kind of fun. You can get, somebody to help moderate it for you. But you should, in this section, and I'm not going to ask you to do this today, but I would certainly recommend do it either before the end of the year, very first of January. This whole workbook can be a great tool for your whole company to use and work through together, but specifically listing out the top 10 to 20 questions that your prospects are asking or searching for. I said Google, but also search engines, AI search engines. And then deciding how you are going to answer those questions, what you have the capabilities to do, maybe what your marketing agency or marketing team can do. Go ahead and figure out, okay, what format can we answer these questions in, and how can we distribute this? What's realistic? We know we can do email. We know we can do LinkedIn newsletter. We know we can do some of these things. Write in some other things if you want to. But once you know what those questions are, the format that we know we can deliver, and then how we're going to distribute it, you can start to craft your content plan for the year. And so this is where, and if we're, doing content for you, then you can talk to your account manager about this plan. My team, of course, knows this is what we're using to plan out 2026. But we're also looking at, from a marketing standpoint, just so y'all know, this is a way to do it internally, but we're also looking at things like SEMrush, which is a keyword tool, so we can see search volume. You want to kind of combine the list of what our prospects are asking with, and then what's getting high search volume online, right? And you can pull that with certain tools. But then you can go in here and just type the name. Let's just say one of the questions that your customer is asking is, how much does it cost, Mark, do business with you? Let's just say, I know we've already talked about that, on call, but perhaps that could be a quick podcast, and you answer that. And then guess what? You have the transcript from the podcast. So I'm able to go and take the transcript from the podcast and put it in a different format. Maybe you have a podcast, and then we turn that also into an infographic. And then in March, it's going to be a blog. And so I can type in here, price, how much does it cost? Also, if you read that book, Endless Customers, you'll see what he calls the big five, which are the 5 kind of core categories. And I talk about this in another, I don't know which one that was, Anna, sorry, I don't even know which one to tell you, but I talk about the big 5 in another webinar or podcast that I've done in terms of the categories for content. But one's price. So these top 20 questions would center around price, reviews. So like, what are people saying? There's 5 different things that are kind of buckets for that. You can just look up Endless Customers, the big 5, and you'll find it. But all of those content pieces should revolve around that. And then you can go drop in here for every month of the year, most of the time, one question can get answered on 5 to 10 to even 20 different ways. It could be a small snippet that goes on social media. It could be a podcast. It could be a blog. It could be an infographic. But this is just a good way to kind of map out your content for the year. We have about 9 minutes left. So I'd love for all of you to take the time to look back through your workbook. And if you had the time to put at the bottom of each section what things you need to work on, most of the sections had that. If you go back and look, if you're able to do that, then you can go in easily down here and type in your revenue goals. And you can even put here how much, how many meetings you need to have to be able to achieve those. What your marketing priorities are based on the X's that you didn't fill out in those kind of foundation, authority, demand. What are our operational priorities? What are our sales priorities? And what are our expansion priorities? This becomes your 2026 plan for the year. What do we need to focus on? And really helps you identify what's realistic, achievable, and what needs to be done across the business to get you in a healthier spot. Oh, you did find the AI content creation. Great. Again, it's dropping all kinds of good resources in there. Love it. Okay, we have 8 minutes for questions. So I want to open up 8 minutes for questions. I know that was fast and furious. Again, if you have other team members that are interested, just shoot me an email. Anna is going to put my email address in the chat. If you want to make sure that other team members on your team get access to the next webinar to do this in January as a team, perhaps, just let me know and I'm happy to send those. Also, if you registered for this, which you did because you're here, you'll get the recording. And we'll make sure we get this recording to you so you could do it internally as your own workshop. What questions do we have? Feel free to unmute and ask. Hey, Scott. Come on now. That was too much for no questions. All right, so everybody's going to have a perfect marketing plan for next year? Perfect growth plan? Sounds like it.
I'd say we have work to do. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
That's right. That's
We'd
right.
like to. I'm going to say yes, but we have work to do. We're two of us are on here, but the other two will. Now we have we got a lot of work to do and put this together.
Yeah.
A lot of gaps.
A lot of gaps, and that's going to be the case no matter what. Because if we're not working on growth and and leveling up, then what are we doing, right? We want to be better operationally. We want to be better in sales. We want to be better in marketing. Nobody's perfect, and there's always going to be opportunities to grow. That's why I asked at the very end to just put 3. And hopefully, if you have enough internal resources, you can spread the 3 out between leadership, because not everybody should own all 3 from every category, right? And prompts, I didn't mention a tool. It's because somebody said you mentioned prompts, however, which tool isn't mentioned. It just really depends on personal preference. It would be prompts for writing, AI content tool like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude. I use a couple of different tools, and in that there's a link that Anna shared that is with a man named Jonathan Mast, really good AI wizard. But in that AI content creation webinar with Jonathan Mast, you'll actually see, and that was about a year ago, so a lot's changed because all of this changes really fast, but you'll actually see us taking or talking about some prompts, starting them in Gemini and going into Claude or going into ChatGPT, whatever. Because Claude, I don't know if you've tried that, the writing style, I like it better, the way that it produces actual written content. But for brainstorming, ChatGPT is great. Gemini's great. you always get that regret about which one you spend the most time in when you see that the other one has an update and then the next one will update and the next one will update. So I like to use them all, to be honest, for different reasons. All right. Sounds like we all have a lot of work to do, Mark. All of us, present company included. Well, please reach out if you have any questions or need anything. I'll be doing this again in January. Make sure you tell your team members to join if you'd like for them to. And I appreciate all of you for joining today.